I remember the way the kitchen smelled that afternoon. Boiled tea gone slightly bitter, the hum of the refrigerator filling the pauses. My father didn't look up when he said the word independent. He said it, the way you say a principle you've already decided not to revisit. My sister was upstairs, packing for orientation. Her tuition had been handled weeks ago. I knew because the envelope sat on the counter, already opened, already accounted for. And when I asked about mine, my mother tilted her head as if surprised by the question, like I'd asked for something unnecessary. "You'll manage," she said. "You always do." There wasn't a fight. That's what surprised people later when they asked why I left. There was no slam door, no list of grievances. Just a moment when I understood the terms of belonging in that house, and how flexible those terms could be if you weren't the favorite child. I packed when they were out. I took my books, my clothes, the small framed photo of my grandfather that had sat on my desk since he died. I left a note that said I was grateful for everything they'd given me. It was true, in the way truths sometimes are, partial, carefully framed. College became a series of transactions and small mercies. Loans, yes, but also jobs that taught me the value of showing up on time and keeping my mouth shut. A supervisor who noticed I worked through lunches and started leaving an extra sandwich on my desk without comment. A neighbor who watched my dog when I had night shifts. None of these people were family. All of them showed up. I built a life that way, not quickly, but sturdily. The years didn't erase the past so much as recontextualize it. My parents called on birthdays, sent holiday messages that were polite and light. My sister and I texted occasionally. We avoided the subject of money the way you avoid a sore tooth, by chewing on the other side. When the wedding invitation arrived, it was cream cardstock, heavy and formal. The envelope was addressed to me and my partner by name, which felt deliberate. I read it twice before setting it down. Attendance felt like a test I hadn't agreed to take. I decided to go because avoidance had begun to feel like another form of obedience. Because I wanted to see my sister happy. Because 9 years had given me enough distance to believe I could stand in that room without shrinking. The venue was a renovated mill, exposed brick, and white linens. Everything looked intentional. I arrived early out of habit. The seating chart took longer than expected. My name sat at a table near the back, that with distant relatives and coworkers I didn't recognize. It was fine. It matched the role I'd been assigned years ago. My parents greeted me with the careful warmth reserved for guests you don't know well. My mother commented on my posture, my father on the weather. Neither mentioned the years between. I noticed how easily they slipped into performance. The ceremony was beautiful. My sister looked calm in a way that surprised me. When she caught my eye, she smiled, quick, unsure, but real. I returned it. That felt like progress. During the reception, I stayed mostly quiet. I listened more than I spoke. People talked about my sister's childhood, stories I recognized and others I didn't. I realized how much of a narrative can be shaped by who's telling it and who's absent when it's told. It was my father who said it, loud enough to carry but casual enough to pretend innocence. "It's nice to have everyone together," he said, lifting his glass, "though it does feel like something's been missing all these years." There was a brief, collective inhale. Eyes moved, not yet landing anywhere. I felt the old reflex, to apologize for existing at the wrong angle, to explain myself into acceptability. Before I could speak, my sister FIANCÉ stood up so quickly his chair scraped the floor. He was pale, not with anger but with something sharper, recognition. "Stop," he said. His voice cut cleanly through the music. "Just stop." The room went still in that way rooms do when they sense a line has been crossed. "You don't get to say that," he continued, looking directly at my parents. "You don't get to frame absence when you created it." My sister reached for his arm, but he kept his gaze steady. "This person," he said, gesturing toward me without looking, "is the reason our nonprofit didn't collapse its first year. They're the one who taught me how to build systems that don't break people. They're the person my mother calls when she needs advice she trusts. They are not a missing piece. They are the foundation in rooms you've never entered. No one clapped. No one cried. The authority in the moment came from clarity, not volume. My parents looked stunned, not because they'd been insulted, but because their version of events had been publicly corrected by someone they couldn't dismiss. My father opened his mouth, then closed it. My mother stared at her hands. The music resumed, uncertain at first, then steady. Conversations picked back up in lowered tones. The crisis passed because it had been named. Later, my sister found me near the exit, where the air was cooler and quieter. "I didn't know," she said, which of both true and insufficient. "I know," I replied. She nodded, eyes bright but not spilling. "I'm glad you came." "So am I said, surprised to find it true. I left before the cake was cut. Outside, my partner waited by the car, scrolling through their phone. When they looked up, they didn't ask questions. They just opened their arms, and I stepped into them, the noise of the reception fading behind us. Driving home, I thought about independence, the word that had been used to push me away. I understood it differently now. Independence wasn't the absence of support. It was the freedom to choose it. I didn't feel victorious. I felt aligned. The past hadn't been rewritten, but it no longer dictated the terms of my presence. In the quiet of the car, with the city lights passing like a series of small permissions, that felt like enough.